Oh boy.
Hey, looks pretty good.
Samurai Champloo is a 2003 anime created by the legendary Shinichiro Watanabe, and is the follow-up to the classic Cowboy Bebop. Just as Bebop blends two vastly different styles, jazz and the space western, Champloo pulls from the hip-hop culture and blends it into a story set in Edo-era Japan. Its thick layer of uniqueness makes it a tough beast to tackle, but that's exactly why I wanted to make this video. How does it hold up as a successor to one of the most beloved anime of all time? And more importantly, is it worth a watch?
I'll take one.
Yeah, me too.
Samurai Champloo is the story of a young girl who saves the lives of two samurai. One is an elitist composed ronin, while the other is an illiterate misfit who doesn't care too much about anything. Indicative to the rest of the plot, the two samurais get themselves into trouble and are sentenced to death, a situation in which the young girl gets them out of. However, with an ulterior motive, the girl did not save these two solely out of the goodness of her own heart. She saved them in search of a favor, and that's exactly what this story is about. With the help of her newfound muscle, the ragtag group starts on a quest to find a mysterious samurai who smells of sunflowers, a man who has an unknown link to the young lady's past. Each member brings something fresh to the table, and their conflicting personalities make interactions a joy to watch. The hip-hop inspired nature of the show sometimes clashes hard with the historical setting the story takes place in. Some situations end up like a train wreck, violent and ridiculous, but hard to look away from. The spastic and messy back and forth between characters sets the precedent for the show's overall tone, which is an area where Champloo really shines. It learned from Bebop's mistakes, and as a result, the overall tone is a good deal less somber. Champloo is self-aware enough that it knows when to make things feel lighthearted and fun, but can also dial it back for the bits that carry more weight. The series is episodic, and it's more of a collection of misadventures than a chronological tale. However, much like its older brother Bebop, certain episodes do a great job at deepening the characters and furthering the plot. The episodes that are done well are nothing short of fantastic, but because of the format, not every episode is a hit. Because some of the episodes take a dip in quality, you can watch one episode that leaves a great taste in your mouth, but when you bite into the next episode, it may end up tasting more like a piece of white bread. The overall charm of the show takes a big blow when it comes to pacing. A handful of episodes do such a bad job at offering any substance at all that they can become genuinely boring. Because of this, the contrast between good and bad episodes becomes much more noticeable, which can turn off many viewers. This is a shame because the latter half of the show is when Champloo really earns its merit to truly be called a masterpiece. The show wraps up nicely in the sense that you feel like you're a part of the journey. While the plot isn't anything too innovative, it's the seamless cultural blend and the mostly strong execution that makes its story worthwhile.
Hey, I'll take two.
Oh man, I want one. Oh man, I'll take this one. This looks good.
The characters in Samurai Champloo are nothing short of unforgettable. Here we are given a group of inherently bad people, but because of their intense personalities and energy levels, the viewer is treated to a one-of-a-kind experience each time the characters are on screen. On their own, each character might not stand out near as much, but this funky group dynamic makes every interaction memorable, and also meaningful to the underlying plot. In a typical setting, it would be safe to say these characters would have never have crossed paths, but because of the tangle of mishaps they are thrust into, we are able to see three vastly different main characters that clash like oil and water. Our characters are Mugen, the ex-pirate with the short temper, Jin, a lost samurai who is shrouded by his past, and Fu, clumsy yet dependable and always finding herself into trouble. The dynamic is great and the personnels are interesting. The only place that Champloo really stumbles with its protagonists is when giving them solid development to stand on their own. Nonetheless, this mixed bag of characters is nothing but fun. However, outside of the main trio, the show has a hard time showing off anyone in a meaningful way. As I said earlier, the show does not take place in chronological order, meaning you won't see some of the episode-specific characters ever again. Now, this isn't always a bad thing, if done right, but when your plan is to have a character appear in only one episode, it's important to show them off. Despite this, some one-off characters manage to come across as interesting and impactful. Often these are the ones that tie to the main trio, but as the show takes its dip and gets to some of the flatter episodes, we are given some characters that sometimes come off as cheesy, forgettable, and even annoying. When done right, a good side character can make an episode feel like a full-course meal, but when you have a bland stand-in, you're better off sticking to the dinner rolls.
Hot tamale, I want
Wow.
two. Oh goodness.
When it comes to art and music, Samurai Champloo absolutely beams. This is where the show really manages to solidify itself as not just another run-of-the-mill anime. For starters, the show takes place in Edo-era Japan, and is set to vibrant backgrounds with impressive set design that are really reminiscent of the time. The show has a wide variety of beautiful Japanese settings. Noisy villages, wooded trails, quiet hillsides, and even a few times at sea. No matter where Champloo takes you, there is always a beautiful backdrop to experience and observe. Of course, these eccentric settings would not have been half as immersive to me had they not been so well lit, especially when the narrative delves into a slightly deeper topic. We are treated to immaculate establishing shots that go above and beyond the traditional standard for lighting, especially in anime. Oftentimes, characters won't be visible at all, only silhouettes set to an orange sky casting licks of fading sunlight over whoever is speaking to add more emphasis to the scene. Because of our cast of miscreants, the show does not shy away from violence. One of the focal points of Champloo's fantastic art comes in the shockingly well animated fight scenes. The fights in Samurai Champloo are choreographed wonderfully. They ditch the traditionally stiff stylistic choices for that smooth, flowing water look during the fights. This makes them immensely pleasant to watch, and the lack of harsh cuts in the direction creates a beautiful action sequence that's also easy on the eyes. This technique gives fighters free range to move. For example, Mugen is all over the place when it comes to fighting, so when the animation loosens up, he is able to go all out without it looking forced. This can sometimes make faces or features look a bit goofy when paused just right, but overall, it works well with what the scenes are trying to do. The next area where Champloo really shines has to do with music. Oh my god, the music. I would watch this show another time through if not only for the music. Watanabe really knew what he was doing this time around. Where he experimented genre mixing a few years before with Cowboy Bebop, in Samurai Champloo he knocked it out of the park. You would never imagine instrumental hip-hop working so well with the time period so established, but man do they kill it. Thanks to the legendary workings of Fat John, Forces of Nature, and the late Nujabes, we are given an absolutely amazing soundtrack. Scenes that offer more tension are supported by harsh drum beats. Scenes that are more relaxed are graced with soft piano and steady cymbals. Each piece of music has a purpose and absolutely does its job. It's testament enough to make a soundtrack that fits your source material, but each piece on its own has merit from a musical standpoint. Not one of the tracks on this OST fails to stand on its own as something worth listening to and appreciating. It's not only great anime music, it's just great music. Overall, this show has some serious grounds to be called a masterpiece. If you enjoy lovable characters, incredible art and sound design, and a lighthearted adventure that sprinkles in some serious themes when it wants to, then Samurai Champloo should definitely be up your alley. While the show falls flat in some aspects with the lack of a deeply compelling or innovative story, it makes up for that tenfold with some hilarious and at times emotional character dynamics, not to mention a 10 out of 10 soundtrack that is just icing on the cake. If you're a fan of Watanabe or just a fan of anime in general, then I would say this show is definitely worth a watch.